This is Bill Osborne, City Manager in Douglasville. Coming up is a new edition of On the Agenda. We've got a special speaker who will be talking about the economy locally, statewide, and maybe some national implications. We'll also have a guest who will be interviewing on this edition of On the Agenda. Hope you'll stay tuned and see what we have in store today. Thank you very much.
Weeks with Keep Douglasville Beautiful, and My City TV is good for the environment.
Coast to coast, from Shoshone to Sierra, White Mountain to Davy Crockett. They're more than our national forests, they are national treasures. But they are being devastated by fire as never before. The Arbor Day Foundation asks for your help in replanting our national forests to help restore their life-giving benefits and awe-inspiring splendor. Visit arborday.org. See what we're doing. See how you can help.
The Douglas County Chamber of Commerce has a monthly luncheon which the City of Douglasville cooperates by providing space in our downtown conference center. We have interesting speakers who come in for these meetings, and during this calendar year, City TV will be working with the Douglas County Chamber of Commerce and their guest speakers in order to have a number of these individuals also appear on the agenda or some other program on City TV. I hope if you have an interest in coming to some of these meetings that you'll get in touch with the Douglas County Chamber of Commerce. We feel like that this is a good opportunity to bring people to our community to talk about timely topics and things of interest. On a previous On the Agenda several months ago, we had former Georgia head coach and athletic director Vince Dooley, and he was here for a speaking engagement at this same monthly luncheon of the Chamber of Commerce. But today we have a special guest, Dr. William Smith with West Georgia University in Carrollton, and he will be interviewed by Jeff Knowles, our City Development Services Director. So coming up at this time is that interview, which I hope you will enjoy, and thank you very much for being with us today. This is Bill Osborne, City Manager in Douglasville.
Open a book, you can explore new lands, meet new friends, and discover new adventures. There are amazing possibilities when you open your mind to reading. You can log onto the Library of Congress website and let the journey begin.
Hello, I'm Mayor Thompson, and My City TV is serving the people of Douglasville and of Douglas County.
Welcome to On the Agenda. I'm Jeff Knowles, and I'm here today with Dr. Joey Smith from West Georgia, and he's going to share with us some of his insight into the economy that we're currently in. Earlier today, you gave a presentation that talked about our regional outlook on the current economic state of West Georgia. Can you share with us a little bit about how you came to the Chamber luncheon today to share some of that information with us?
Well, on an annual basis, University of West Georgia puts on a forecasting breakfast, and I'm one of the speakers at the forecasting breakfast. So somebody contacted me to come and talk to the chamber because I had looked at issues revolving around the economic status of both Paulding and Douglas County. So I had a little bit of experience in the local economy.
Great, great. Well, and we've got some footage from that presentation, and it was all very good. We're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about, I guess, more on general terms, some of the things with our new presidency and you know how we know we're in a bad situation, how we're going to come out of that bad situation. And I've got a few prepared questions here. And given our nation's current economic condition, what effect do you see the national policies of the new presidential administration having on our local governments?
Well, some of the things that Obama has decided should be put at the forefront of his economic policies have been things like trying to put money into the development of infrastructure. And specifically, he's talked about things like shovel-ready projects, things that are already under consideration or at advanced stages of planning. And if local governments currently are faced with cutting their budgets, oftentimes some of these projects get put on the back burner. The thing is, though, if we're able to bring those off the back burner and put them back into the process of being built, then what that does is it pays salaries to people who are in the construction industry, possibly in the road building industry, and those salaries oftentimes trickle down to the local economy. People who earn money spend that money locally, and that has multiplier effects that are going to be beneficial to both Douglas and Paulding counties as well as the rest of the state.
Okay, great. That leads right into the second question. If the new policies are favorable and the outcome increases dollars filtered to our local governments, how can this, I guess, help further stimulate or stabilize the local economy? Because we understand it's more on a local effect. You got to build from the bottom to the top.
Well, one of the problems local governments have is that they typically aren't able to run deficits. And this is true with both local and state governments, so county governments, city governments, state governments. They're not able to run deficits. By expanding the amount of dollars that local governments have to work with, what this does is that in a time when local governments would typically be shrinking the number of projects that they'd be working on, shrinking potentially payrolls. In fact, one of the things that folks are talking about at the state level right now is the possibility of having either layoffs or furloughs at the state level, and this will actually have an impact on local government. But by taking those dollars and putting them into the local government for these projects, then you get a stabilization by supporting incomes of local government officials, local government workers, and local government workers range from janitors all the way up to administrators. So it's not just simply elected officials that will be having their salaries paid by potential grants from the federal government, but everybody that works in any state agency.
Okay. All right. You just said, you talked about shrinking budgets. Can you explain the economic differences between, I guess, cutting back during the times of a recession versus tax breaks and bailout money and things of that nature? Can you tell us when it's appropriate to actually cut back, as you've said? Well,
now, the ironic thing is that when you're talking about fiscal policy that's directed at stabilizing the economy, fiscal policy is supposed to, if it's being implemented properly, you're supposed to increase the taxes and reduce government spending during times of expansion, so during good times, and you're supposed to increase government spending and reduce taxes during times of contractions or during recessions. One of the problems that we've had in implementing this policy is that we're always willing to put money into the pot when it comes to expanding during recessions, but we almost are never willing to increase taxes in order to offset the eventual expansion that occurs at the end. So the proper time to have an increase or have an expansionary fiscal policy is during a recession, and that's precisely what's being proposed both by the current or the previous administration and the current administration. Is they're proposing expansionary fiscal policies, a reduction in taxes and increase in government spending. Now, the issue then becomes, after we've incurred this large debt, eventually that money has to be paid back that we're borrowing for the policies. Are we going to end up increasing taxes in order to generate the revenues to pay this back? That's where the rubber really meets the road, is later on. How are we going to take care of the debt that we generate in the process of doing this?
Right. Well, we're seeing the state of Georgia cut back in a number of different sources through staffing and holding on to funds a little longer than they typically would have that would come to our local governments. Can you tell us how that's affecting the local governments as well as the local communities and the local economies as a whole?
Well, one area it's really been hard hit has been education. If you look at local education, school districts have had to supplement the dollars that they would have received from the state level with local taxes, things like one area is, we've seen some localities have to increase the property tax rate in order to make up shortfalls. When you increase the property tax rate, you're pulling dollars out of the local economy in order to place them into local salaries and wages and into maintaining buildings and heating buildings and stuff like that. Whereas a lot of those dollars would have come from the state government, now they're coming from the local government. So it actually has a contractionary effect on local governments. So when you reduce the amount of dollars that are available from outside the area, it causes a decline.
So do you see any future in the state's, I guess, current policy of shrinking the amounts that local governments are getting?
Well, one proposal that the Obama administration has made is that they're going to try to support local governments by providing some tax dollars for local relief. And this has the potential of counteracting some of that, what are called pro-cyclical effects, that when we're going into a downturn, we don't want to reduce the number of jobs in government, we don't want to reduce spending. So this will help counteract some of that, and I should say if that is what it actually is implemented. So I guess I kind of meandered off topic there a little bit.
Yeah, and it's a difficult, I guess it's a difficult question to answer. How do we go from a weakened economy into a stronger economy while continuing to do the things that you say weaken the economy, like reduction in staff and laying people off and cutting budgets and things of that nature, when I guess the history shows that that's not indeed what we need to be doing during those time periods.
It's going to be a very difficult balancing act for the current administration. They're going to have to take what's already a large fiscal deficit. They're going to have to spend more money. It's obvious that some of the plans that the current administration and the past administration have tried to implement are going to cost additional dollars. Things like the banking bailout, things like bailouts for the automotive industries. These are going to continue to increase the size of the deficit. Nobody is really arguing that we shouldn't be doing anything, or very few people are arguing we shouldn't be doing anything. The problem, however, is does the current administration, will the current administration have the kind of fiscal responsibility or the fiscal discipline to be able to rein that spending back in at the end of the recession? Will they be able to increase taxes? Is that something that's politically feasible in order to write down or in order to draw down on that deficit that we're going to incur?
You mentioned the bailout. How does the bailout have the reaching effect into not only the local economy, but the economy as a whole? I think we all understand the economy as a whole. It keeps it moving, but how does it trickle all the way down to the local economy for those $300 billion bailout?
Well, one of the things to consider is that the West Georgia area has quite a few people that work in the parts supplier industry. They supply parts for lots of different automotive manufacturers. Some of those are the big three. And the bailout that's intended to support the automotive industry, even though some people have argued against it, it will have a positive impact on local employment because it'll keep those parts companies producing parts to go in those cars. Now, long term, I think it's pretty much anybody's guess as to whether that's going to be beneficial. There's a lot of problems in the automotive industry, and I don't think that the bailout itself is going to solve all those problems. I think that those have to come, the solutions for those have to come from inside the automotive industry.
Right. I think some of the testimony that was given in front of the committee enlightened us to some of the problems that previously existed in that industry itself. Now, the government, I guess the federal government in their bailout process didn't just affect the automobile industry, but they did affect banks also. Is there, in your opinion, should the federal government be reaching into these types of ventures and bailing out banks and things of that nature?
Well, in terms of the banking industry, a lot of people like to use the metaphor that the banking industry is the oil that lubricates the economy. That if it were not for the banking industry, a lot of the economy would simply grind to a halt. And one of the things that we did see is that over the past summer and fall of this year, when the banking industry went into its crisis mode, when they effectively stopped lending, that was exactly what happened. Things simply ground to a halt. Right. And we lost an awful lot of economic activity during that time frame. I think a lot of government leaders, when they saw what occurred after the first round of banking collapses occurred, right, that if they sat around and did absolutely nothing, that it was going to get worse and worse and worse. And when they started allowing additional dollars to flow into the system and they started changing some of the policies that applied to the banking industry, we started seeing some positive effects. And one of the things that we're seeing now is that that through some of the rate changes from the Federal Reserve Bank and through some of the new policies that are effectively guaranteeing the funds that are being kept in banks, we've gone from $100,000 to $250,000 FDIC insurance on accounts, and also through some of the promises that the federal government has made to support the banking industry, we're starting to see a pretty quick turnaround in the banking industry. We're seeing additional lending going on. Doesn't mean that we've come out of the woods in any stretch of the imagination, but right now we're seeing interest rates that are around 4.5%, 5%. These are lower than we've seen in the past 25, 30 years. Right. There's a lot of people now that are going out and refinancing their houses, and this has a positive effect because as people refinance their houses, they have more dollars at the end of the month that they can use for other purchases. So they're able to get their house at a lower price, and by cutting the price of their loan, they're able to go out and purchase other goods and services that are going to end up stimulating the economy. So the idea, though, is that should we be bailing out banks? I don't think in a typical market we should be bailing out a bank that simply has gone through a period of engaging in bad practices. Right. But this is not a single bank that it was engaging in bad practices. These were pervasive bad practice throughout the system, and it was something I think somebody had to step in, and I think the federal government was the only one that had the resources to do what it did.
Whoever printed all that cash back in the early 90s, well, that's who did it. Well, because we were at the top.
It's Alan Greenspan's fault. We misunderstood everything he said.
Yeah, but I heard one economist say we were at the top when we should have been raising taxes. We didn't want it started to dip, and they didn't want to see it dip, so they put all this cash into the system to give it another jump start, and it kept going way beyond its means. Yeah,
that's the point of fiscal responsibility, is that when we're in a downturn, it's perfectly fine to incur a deficit, spend your way out of a situation where you've got lagging employment numbers, you've got things going wrong. Yeah. It's perfectly okay. However, when we get to the point where people are going, okay, we're doing okay now,
raise the taxes.
It's time that we sort of dampen the party down a little bit, right, and we try to make people just a little sadder than they would have been by taking a little bit more of their income, because the reason they were generating that income to begin with is because we just reduced taxes on them.
Right.
We're pumping money into the system. We're lowering interest rates. We're making it easier to borrow. So there's fiscal and monetary policy that we're using to make things a lot happier, a lot more lively. But we don't want it to get too lively.
The one thing we learned in Economics 101 is the economy is cyclical in nature. It has to go up, and it also has to go down. It can't just keep going up.
But the point of fiscal and monetary policy is to try to smooth them out. So you're not trying to make it go up faster forever. Right. You're just trying to smooth things out so that people can plan more.
Right.
And the problem is that an awful lot of government officials are under the impression, maybe rightfully so, that they will be voted out of office if things aren't substantially better than when they came into office.
Right.
The problem is this is all of the cake at the beginning of the meal, and then you don't want to have
The meal.
The meal. So
Which is smooths it out.
that's right. You're supposed to be smoothing out the high points as well as the low points.
Right.
And the problem is that we like the high points. We,
I
we
think-
want to be manic.
Yeah.
The economy is a manic depressive.
Yeah.
We don't want to be depressive, but we like that manic part. So we continue with the manic part. We don't try to smooth that out. We don't stay on our meds. So
To smooth the highs and the lows.
and the lows, that's right.
To keep us at a reasonable,
We go off our meds when we get into the manic portion of the economy
and want more.
and want more.
And even better. And even higher. And then we deal with what we're dealing with now, unfortunately.
That's exactly right.
Earlier today in the chamber luncheon, you kind of gave an economic outlook of the community, and at the end you followed up with a conclusion as to the forecast of the next, however long it may be. Can you tell us a little bit about your forecast into the economic future of our region, not necessarily the state or the United States or anything of that nature, but the West Georgia community as a whole? Can you tell us about your forecast for that?
Well, the two things that we really look at in the forecast are unemployment rates and the initial unemployment insurance claims, because those two things we think of as being leading indicators for production in the area. We can't really measure county level production in a reasonable enough time frame. So those are the two we focus on. One of the things that we've seen, though, is that the unemployment rate has been going up a lot faster than what previously had been anticipated by a lot of economists in the area. So that's been a pretty big negative. In addition to that, we've also seen unemployment insurance claims really spike, especially around Christmas time. And Christmas time is generally a period during the year where you see unemployment insurance claims fall, not go up. So a lot of economists across the country had been predicting that the middle of the summer would be the bottom, that the recession would start on we would start to exit the recession sometime around June or July. But I think that because we're seeing these problems associated with additional job losses, we're seeing firms start to go out of business in the retail industry. We saw a really disappointing Christmas. We actually saw a decline in retail sales of about 2.7% over the Christmas holidays, which is probably the worst Christmas in 20 years. That the recession is probably going to last throughout the summertime, probably push its way on into the Christmas season of 2009. And we'll start to see some positive growth sometime post-Christmas, so right after Christmas. The housing market, a lot of people are interested in the housing market because in the Douglas and Paulding County area, this has kind of been the life's blood of growth for the past 15, 20 years. The problem is that the housing market hasn't quite found a bottom yet. Housing contracts, there's a lot of people trying to sign contracts on housing. It's been improving since the summertime, but the last few months we actually saw a deterioration because of credit market problems that occurred in the last couple of quarters. The housing market is not close to being out of the woods yet. Even if it were to start on the upward side, climbing out of the recession that the housing market's currently in, it's going to take a substantially longer period of time because it had such a long drop to get back to where we were even years ago. So my predictions are that the Douglas and Paulding County area in the West Georgia region will start to exit the recession. We'll start to see positive economic growth and positive employment data sometime around Christmas time this year, and that the housing market is going to continue to stay in a recession throughout the remainder of 2010.
Okay. Well, thank you for being on the agenda today, and we'll hear from Bill Osborne very shortly to wrap this segment up.
Explore what you can see.
If you just get up and get outside and see those trees, you can actually be that tree.
For the children in your life, Visit Nature Explore at arborday.org.
You could be a whole lot smarter.
Hi, my name is Patty Ellis, and my City TV is full of information.
I'm a single mother of 2 kids. He dropped off for a whole month. I just get frustrated because in any way that I talk to him, it just doesn't go through his head. I didn't give up. There's always hope. They'll snap out of it.
To help your teen graduate, call 1-877-4A-KID or go to boostup.org.
I'd like to thank Dr. Smith for his time on being on the agenda, and I especially would like to thank Jeff Knowles for pinch hitting for me today to ask the questions and to be involved in the discussion with Dr. Smith. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you will join us next time for On the Agenda.